Those of you who are my Patreons and have been following me at Patreon know how I feel about this election. I do feel that we've had major election rigging, but I had mixed feelings about who I think would be better because I am the president. Let me tell you what I think has been going on. It appears that the election's been kind of confusing because my name has been on the ballot along with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And a lot of people understood that if they were voting for Trump, they were voting for me. But some people didn't understand that. So it's been confusing. And what's being reported on the news is not accurate. Only Gabriel Chord of Fox News has reported on the news accurately. But because Donald Trump is in my cabinet, Lori McBride did all sorts of election fraud to make it appear like her cuck Joe Biden got the presidency, whereas it looks like Donald Trump actually got about 60% of the vote. But she manipulated the vote tallies and all that to make it look like Joe Biden won. But in the end, it doesn't really matter because the one who really won was me. So what I did is I told my men, I said, you know what? It looks like we've had major election fraud going on, so let's just go ahead and get all get all the voting done over, and make sure my name's on the ballot in all the states. And they did a recount or a revote in all the states, and I won with like 90% of the popular vote. And I've kicked out both Joe Biden and Donald Trump, which is a big relief to the country because the election was so close, according to the way, actually it wasn't that close, but Lori McBride's lying news media narrative makes it appear really close so that she could pull off her coup. She wanted to use Joe Biden to pull off the coup. You might say, so how in the world did Lori? Well, Lori watched the election and she determined that that Trump was winning in the mainstream news reporting. She knew that I was winning overall, but she figured if she could get rid of Trump, she could get rid of me and make it so that I'm just this crazy lady who thinks I'm president when I'm not. So basically, Trump was winning Michigan and Wisconsin, and she flipped those by just putting in a bunch of illegal ballots. Trump was winning Arizona, and she flipped that and had Fox and all these news stations call it for Biden. Trump was winning Pennsylvania, and she flipped that. He was winning Georgia. He was winning all these states, and she thought, if I don't start flipping these states, she already knows that the whole election thing's a big sham anyways, because I've been the president since 2016. I actually won the election for Trump in 2016 against Hillary Clinton, and we thought that they were all dead because those of you who want more details, you need to be a Patreon supporter, okay? Because I've been going into a lot more detail with my Patreon supporters. But long story short, what happened was we were on the verge of civil war because of the closeness of the election and because Trump was claiming that there was fraudulent. He was rightfully claiming that there was a fraudulent election going on. But then it's been fraudulent since 2016 because I've been the president anyway. So it's like the Lori McBride Jesuits have created such a convoluted lying mess. So, but it got to the point now where I really needed to be the president. It got to the point where we couldn't play this game anymore, where Trump's the president when I'm really the president, or where, I was voted American Empress in 2014, and we started having problems right away with Jesuits. I mean, Rick Scott of Florida was claiming I was against Publix, and he had everybody in Florida. He declared Florida an independent state from the United States because I was the Empress, and but then we Baker acted him and got the yeast. He had a yeast brain infection. We fixed him, so he's okay now. Yeah. I actually made a video about that, but it's just Jesuits are very interested in politics because they want world control. They've been interested in that since the time of Ignatius de Loyola, their founder. So it's, but long story short, we've been playing this game where I'm the president, but I pretty much, basically, when we thought Trump was dead, I'm just going to ignore that. When we thought Trump was dead, we went ahead and told everybody that if you vote for Trump, you're voting for me. And so that's how I won the 2016 election for Trump. Basically, yeah. We thought Hillary was dead too. So it's because Angelina Ballerina took over a Trump rally on November 4th, 2016, and she basically used Hillary to dildo rape Donald Trump in front of the whole Trump rally while she had them under her brain control. And Angelina Ballerina's brain control was something awful, let me tell you. So we thought they were dead. And then when we defeated Angelina Ballerina in battle on January the 6th, 2017, we discovered she had him held captive on her spaceship for a couple months. And so when we brought Donald Trump back, along with all those Trump supporters who had been regularly raped the whole time they were on Angelina's spacecraft, we just let him have the presidency. And that was okay until we found out that Melania Trump had basically usurped the presidency, which explains why Donald Trump was such a war hawk, which I hated, and which is why I temporarily turned against him and went with Tulsi Gabbard. So, I don't regret that I went with Tulsi Gabbard. I'm actually a registered Democrat right now. But I also belong to my own party, the Gabriel Chana Independent Party. So what happened was this is my corkboard, by the way, my Patreon supporter, who's homosexual and a very nice person and one of my great supporters. He sent me this card, and that's up there. I've been checking my P.O. box, and I haven't gotten anything. So that's a drawing that Ribby Jenkins made of me lightning bolting. I've got lightning bolt powers from Jesus. So yeah. So anyways, to make a long story short, we've been playing this game where I'm not the president, even though I am the president, because it's kind of hard to be the president when you're not the president in mainstream news. I mean, if nobody knows you're the president, how can you enact and enforce your legislation? But nevertheless, I've written a whole body of law called conspiracy law. I have, I've got all of my policies on a, I'm going to have a link to my page. I've already appointed a cabinet. Yes, I've got my cabinet all picked out. I'm going to talk about them in this video. And, but I wasn't sure if I'd be able to really, be able to enforce my policies because I'm not president. I haven't been president in mainstream news, though I hear because this election has gone so awry and because Lori McBride has made such a first-class mess of this election that mainstream news has reported on our revote. I think it was a revote in every state. When the election was so close that there were like 7 states not called, I sent my men an email and said, we need to do a revote in all the states. Make sure my name's on the ballot. I think that even includes Florida, where I live, and make sure that I bet I'll win, and we're going to kick out both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And that's exactly what happened, is what I hear. The country is in love with me. I have both Democrats and Republicans, Libertarians, and Greens in my cabinet. And the way I'm going to run the country is like this. The reason they're in love with me is because they're very worried. As a result of this election, which Lori McBride engineered using her COVID-19 nonsense, COVID-19 is a cold virus that is no more deadly than the common flu. But Lori McBride has overhyped it in order to get everybody to do mail-in ballots, so she could use the mail-in ballots to engineer massive election fraud, which is what she's done. The reason she did that is she thought if she kicked out Donald Trump, she could kick me out as president. I was the one who got elected in 2016. If you do a search, if you go back to, if you look at my YouTube channel, I'm going to even have a link to the YouTube video I made when I made my presidential acceptance speech in 2016. And then you'll understand. And she thinks she's been trying to do several things. She's been trying to get me homeless by increasing my rent and, making life too expensive for me. But my men have been beefing up my Patreon to make up for it. She's increased my rent $150 the past 2 years. But my men have been beefing up my Patreon so that I can afford the increase in the rent. She's increased it all over the country, though, to make it look like nobody can live on Gail's income. How can a person so poor living in such a rinky-dink apartment be a president? And I'm going to kick out Donald Trump, who would die for Gail. And then, Trump literally had his 2 legs cut off trying to protect me from his evil wife, Melania, when Melania was alive. We've got a good Melania automaton, I believe, right now. But anyways, yeah. So that's been her goal, to try to get me homeless so that she can claim that there's no way I'm the president, kick out Donald Trump, and then install her cuck, Joe Biden. And then once she got her cuck in, then she planned on eliminating all of my supporters by finding an excuse to either jail them, make them homeless, or kill them, She's been killing my supporters anyways. She killed about 12,000 of my Twitter followers in July 2018 using this bioengineered tweeter bird she created that was this huge bird about the size of a man that went out and literally killed my Twitter followers, so that in one day my Twitter followers dropped from about 13,000 to 2,000. And I asked Zach Knight, what happened? Did Twitter just eliminate them? He said they all got killed by Lori McBride's tweeter bird. Anyways, I'm getting off the subject. To make a long story short, I am the U.S. president. The country was in a panic. They thought, we're going to have civil war. The Republicans are furious because, massive election fraud. And a lot of the Democrats didn't like it either, especially the Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders, Andrew Yang Democrats, the ones that aren't too crazy about Biden. But kind of like putting up with them because their party basically cheated them of who should be. I have solved all of your problems, Democrats and Republicans. And a lot of the people that voted for Trump, they voted for him because he was against the deep state. And then once he got into office, he ended up cucking to the deep state, especially the military-industrial complex, which is why I deserted him and went to Tulsi Gabbard. That was actually the reason. That was because his wife took over the presidency very shortly after Donald Trump became president, and she ordered Trump to do as she said or she would kill me. That she was so jealous of me because I got voted Playboy magazines, hottest woman alive and all this stuff that I really could care less about, but it was a big deal to her, and she was just consumed with jealousy, but she's gone now. So long story short, the country was desperate, and they did a revote. I won with about 90% of the popular vote. I mean, I won states like California that are, because I am a centrist. I have both. They already knew who was going to, I already picked my cabinet. So when they voted for me, they fully know my position, and I'm very consistent. Unlike Trump and most politicians, I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. And they knew exactly what they were getting, and they figured this is the only way we're going to be able to stop a civil war. With this election, the way it's going, we're going to have a civil war. And we don't want a civil war. We need somebody else for president, and they chose me. I am the uniter. I am the one who's going to bring healing to this land and cure the division which Lori McBride has caused. So they voted for me. You may say, how are you going to enforce your policies if you're not president in mainstream news? Well, it looks like because this election went so awry that I am president in mainstream news. Probably the only place that's not reporting on it might be the county in Florida where I live, Brevard County. Even the Floridians know about me. So, yeah, I think so. Say, how's it working? Well, to protect me so that Lori McBride won't kill me here where I live, because she's still obsessed with me. She's been trying to kill me She kept her relationship with Brent Spiner by threatening death on me if Brent wouldn't do what she wanted. And so, you know, it just, oh, let's see if I can fix this. Yeah, let's get that right there. Yeah. So that's how it worked for, you know, most of the time with Brent Spiner. So she figures the way I can get what I want is just threaten to kill people if they don't do what I want. And it's pretty much worked because people like to stay alive and they want the people they love to stay alive. But it's gotten to the point now where the United States had to decide, do we want to continue to cuck to this bitch and have a civil war, which is what's going to happen because Lori's getting so desperate to maintain the status quo, which is basically so that her insanity will be believed by all the sane and enforced by all the sane people, that she's willing to have a civil war. And the country said, we can't have this. We cannot allow her to do this to the United States. We cannot allow her to cause a civil war. And they said, we're going to have to make Gail as president for real. For real. That's the only way out. If we make Trump president, we're going to have riots, anarchy all over the country from the Biden supporters that are really the Lori McBride supporters. If we make Biden the president, then the Republicans are going to be mad and they might come out with their guns and, you know, and so they decided the only solution is Gail has to be the president because she's a true centrist. This way, both sides feel like they're being represented. So they made me the president. They had to make a tough decision as who's going to be the person who plays like president in the White House while I'm actually the president. They couldn't decide whether they wanted that to be Donald Trump or Joe Biden. They decided because Lori McBride's Biden supporters are so violent, if they allowed Trump to win the election, even though he really did win the election, we would definitely have civil war in this country. Trump supporters, for all their faults, and even though a lot of them are gun toters and all that, they tend to be less violent than the Democrats because Lori McBride's in charge of the Democrats and I'm basically in charge of the Republicans. Most of the Republicans tend to support me more than the Democrats right now because they're more sane than most of the Democrats. Because Lori McBride's taken over the Democratic Party. Okay, so they decided they're going to go ahead and go with Biden, but from what I understand, they have arrested the real Joe Biden as a Lori McBride Jesuit and have replaced him with a good automaton. So what you're going to be seeing on the news, they're going to go ahead and in mainstream news give Joe Biden the presidency so that they can prevent a civil war. They're going to appease the Republicans and the people who didn't want Biden or Lori McBride by saying, hey, don't listen to the mainstream news. The real president is Gail. It's not Biden. And if he crosses me or he does anything that goes against my policies, he's cooked. He's cooked. We are going to deal with him. Okay? From what I understand is they've arrested Joe Biden as a Lori McBride Jesuit, and what you're seeing in the news is a good Joe Biden automaton. You might say, well, why didn't you just go with good Donald Trump? Well, we're trying to prevent a civil war. And they see this as the way forward. They want to use me as president, but protect me at the same time because Lori McBride has not been defeated yet. And as long as she's loose and her followers are out there, and if they literally made me the president in mainstream news, I would probably be shot in the head when I go out for my walks and killed the next day. So in order for me to be president, I have to rule indirectly. And the way that I've set it up is that I have appointed Tulsi Gabbard as my vice president, and I've pretty much delegated most of my presidential job to Tulsi Gabbard. But I have to have some checks on Tulsi Gabbard because she has a bad clone. And when that bad clone gets in there and overrides my policies and goes against conspiracy law, I've got some checks and balances in there. Tulsi cannot pass any legislation or any acts as president without first getting permission from Vladimir Putin, Brent Spiner, and Judge Terrence Jenkins. Like, these are top men on my marriage list. They've got to screen all of her decisions and give them an okay before she can go forward. Okay? And then once that happens, so basically Tulsi Gabbard is my president. She's a vice president, but she's basically the president. So Tulsi Gabbard supporters, by voting for me, you're basically getting Tulsi Gabbard, because I've got to delegate a lot to her because I'm not the president like in mainstream news. I sort of am, because I hear on mainstream news they're saying, to get the real news, go to Gabriel Chana. They're having like a subscript at the bottom of the screen saying, go to Gabriel Chana, Fox News 00 on cable to get the real news about the presidential election. And that we're just putting up this fake news here to protect the real president, which is me. So yeah, so I've got Tulsi Gabbard basically as my vice president, and I'm delegating a lot to her, so she's almost like the president, which is good news for the country because Tulsi is a uniter. That's why I like her. Let me go over my cabinet now. Now that I've explained to you how I'm going to be operating as president, mostly behind the scenes and delegating a lot, okay? Now, let's go through my page here. I'll just talk about my page here, about my cabinet, okay, and why I chose them. Tulsi Gabbard is closest to me in my political positions, so I went with her. For Secretary of State, I've chosen Rand Paul. I've been observing him over the years, and I really like his views on foreign policy, so I chose Rand Paul. For Health and Human Services, I've chosen Bernie Sanders. The reason I've chosen Bernie Sanders is because I think in his heart of hearts, he will really like my national health care plan, which is like a federally sponsored HMO that does allow private insurance, but also makes sure that every American gets health insurance, whether they can afford it or not. Like if you're homeless, you will be covered. We will cover you. If you can afford it, we charge you a very minimal fee based on income. And believe me, it's very minimal. Anybody can afford this HMO. Anybody can. And it's very reasonable, and everybody gets it covered. The doctors love it because they don't need malpractice insurance. And the reason it's so cheap is because the doctors don't need malpractice insurance, and everybody that joins the HMO has to agree to use only our lawyers, and all the doctors have to be scanned ahead of time before they do any procedure or recommend any treatment for a patient, and say under 666 computer lie detection that to the best of their ability, they're doing what's best for this patient. And if they pass that, they can't go forward. So that's how we keep the cost down, by minimizing criminals in the healthcare system, and by not having to deal with outrageous malpractice insurance malpractice lawsuits. Okay, Secretary of Treasury, Ron Paul. I really like his Austrian economics. I don't completely agree with him, but I want him to have a say. Secretary of Education, Ben Carson. I mean, he overcame his background to become a brain surgeon, so he should know a lot about education. Secretary of Labor, Stephanie Kelton. I like her position on economics, so I think she'd be really good. When you go to my presidential page, you can check. I have links to each of these people so you can learn more about them. She's very intelligent, and I like her views on economics. Secretary of Commerce, Jo Jorgensen, the Libertarian candidate for president. I like a lot of her libertarian views, so I'm going to make her Secretary of Commerce. I'm going to keep Ben Carson as Housing and Urban Development. I like him there. Press secretaries, Donald Trump and Kanye West. Donald Trump's greatest strength is as a communicator, so that's where I want to use him. Jesse Ventura is in the Office of Management and Budget. My trade representative will be Vladimir Putin, who has a PhD in economics. He's going to do great in that position. You say, how can you do that? He's a Russian. He's going to have dual citizenship. I'm gonna give him U.S. citizenship as well as Russian citizenship. So Vladimir Putin will be our trade representative. And we're no more of this Russia, anti-Russia garbage. Russia is our ally, okay? I'm not playing Lori's game. Environmental Protection Agency, the head of that will be Bill Nye. He has been on with me and my men for all sorts of ventures. He's a good person. He's a smart scientist. He's helped us with a lot of scientific emergencies. He's perfect for that job. Her bombs are making my eyes itch and making her yeast bombs are terrible. White House Chief of Staff Tucker Carlson. I've been watching him on Fox News. That guy is sharp. He's fair. And I think he'd be a good person to decide who Tulsi Gabbard should listen to. Attorney General Bob Barr. Don't get him confused with Bill Barr. This is Bob Barr. He's a very strong libertarian, and he knows a lot about the Constitution. And I'm a strong constitutionalist, so yeah, I think he'd be great. And I have links to all these people underneath this video, so just go ahead and check it out. Secretary of Defense, Sergei Shoigu. He also holds this position in the Russian government as well. I tried to find an American, folks, but we've got a really big problem with the military-industrial complex in this country. And it appears that no high-ranking military officer is immune from the influences of the corrupt military-industrial complex. So I had to go with a Russian. So yes, Sergei Shoigu. He is Secretary of Defense. I'm going to give him, he's also fluent in English as well as Russian and many other languages, a very intelligent man. I'm going to try to use him to help clean up the military. And believe me, there's a lot of corruption in there, which is why I went with Tulsi Gabbard instead of Trump for a lot the past couple of years. Secretary of Energy Neil deGrasse Tyson. I want somebody really smart in this job who's going to work well with Bill Nye. Administrator of the Small Business Administration, Rostislav Sabolka. This is an unknown that I discovered, but a very smart guy. I like his ideas about economics. I think he's going to do a great job in this position. You can check him out. Links underneath this video. Just check out my my blog page called Independent Gail Chord Schuler for U.S. President, and check him out. Secretary of the Interior, John Echohawk. He's from New Mexico. He's an Indian. I just want to make sure Indian rights are respected. I don't agree with Trump with his pipelines and everything going through Indian lands, and I want them to be respected. Okay, we need to clean up the CIA. There's a lot of corruption in there, so I couldn't find any current member of the CIA that I can use. So I chose an ex-CIA person, Brian Dean Wright, to be the director of the CIA. Director of National Intelligence. Again, there's a lot of corruption in our United States intelligence. I had to go with a Russian, Alexander Bortnikov. He is Director of National Intelligence. He's got a lot of experience in intelligence, and he's worked with Vladimir Putin as one of his trusted advisors, and I think he will do a really good job. I'm going to give him dual citizenship, Russian and American. Acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Dan Bongino. I've been listening to him. Seems like a really smart guy. Yeah, pray for him. I hear he's been dealing with some sort of neck cancer. I think Lauren McBride has attacked him because I actually decided on my cabinet in July. And she's been attacking some members of my cabinet. Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao. She has this job in the Trump administration. I've decided to keep her there. She's got an Asian background. Did you know the countries that have the best transportation systems in the world are the Asian countries? So I kind of want to keep her there. I think she's going to bring that in. Yeah, like countries like Singapore, they've got the best roads and transportation in the whole world. And I figure somebody with this Asian background she's probably up on that, and she's going to study these countries and learn from them and bring that to the United States. Improve our roadways and our infrastructure. Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue of Georgia. Trump picked a really good person for this job. This guy's a farmer, so he really knows what's involved with agriculture, and he's also got political experience, so he's great. I'm going to keep him there. I'm going to also give Tulsi Gabbard the job of Secretary of Veterans Affairs. She's got the right perspective on military service. She's a dedicated soldier, and she cares about veterans, really cares about them. So she's going to have 2 jobs, Secretary of Veterans Affairs and Vice President. The chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. This is a position that Trump eliminated that I've reinstated. I'm going to give the job to Stephanie Kelton. This woman is an economic genius. Her position is, she's got a unique position. She doesn't believe, I disagree, I agree with her. The Republicans are not sponsoring a lot of social programs because they're claiming we've got this huge deficit. She says that is a myth, that the United States basically borrows from itself, and we can actually use the deficit to fund a lot of social programs that we need, and to help poor people, and to help, and in my opinion, to help increase the middle class. So it's kind of a complicated subject, but basically it's kind of complicated, but the United States takes out treasury bonds, and the treasury bonds, that's where our debts are. Basically, the United States is borrowing from itself. So when you're borrowing from yourself, you can control how you pay yourself back. You get it? And we can pay ourselves back by creating jobs. It's kind of complicated, but listen to Stephanie Kelton. I've got a page devoted to her. You need to listen to her videos. This woman is a genius. And Rostislav Sabolka is the one who made me aware of her. And that's why I want him administrator of the Small Business Administration. So that's why I can have Bernie Sanders in my administration, because a lot of his ideas, even though the Republicans don't think so, they will work. It can be done. It's not going to put us into economic disaster. It's a complicated subject. You need to listen to Stephanie Kelton, okay? But that's my administration, okay? That's my administration. We gotta stop the division that we have in our country. And they finally decided that I need to be president for real. That we got to stop playing these games, because this game playing has gotten to the point where if I'm not president for real, we're going to have an all-out civil war. This is what it's come to. We cannot play Laurie McBride's games anymore. I'm president for real. The reason they decided to claim that Biden has won the election is because they don't want a civil war. And basically, the real Biden, from what I understand, they handcuffed him and arrested him. And he's been sacked and replaced with a good automaton. So basically, he's going to be carrying out my policies. Yeah. And maybe my national health care plan will finally get put into action. It'll probably never happen with a Republican administration. So yeah. So they're basically going to claim that he's the president to protect me, because they think that they're going to have better luck enforcing my policies using a good Biden automaton. If you want to get the real news, you need to go to Gabriel Chana, Fox News 00 on cable. You may say, how does Trump feel about this? He's having a hard time dealing with it, because he was willing to die for me, and he feels like he can't trust the Biden automaton. He thinks it's going to get corrupted like the Barack Obama automaton. We haven't had the real Barack Obama since 2012. The real Barack Obama died in 2012, and we've been dealing with an automaton since then, and he's been corrupted a lot. So Trump's afraid the same thing's going to happen with the Biden automaton. But nothing is perfect when you're dealing with Laurie McBride lying mainstream news. So, but they've decided to go in this direction because they feel this is the only way forward for the United States, that any other way means civil war. So I have to be the president for real. So, I want to express an appreciation for my Patreon supporters. You literally have made it so that I can afford the $150 rent increase that I've experienced over the past 2 years. And you've made it so that, so that I'm able to afford my apartment, and made it so that Lori has tried to make me homeless so that she could kick me out as president. But thanks to my Patreon supporters, I am not in danger of homelessness, because my income has increased, and Therefore, I can be the president. See, Laurie McBride wanted to make me homeless so that she could say, how could a homeless person be the president? I kicked Gail, and then she planned to get Trump out too. She succeeded in getting Trump out, it looks like. But she did not succeed in getting me out, which is actually going to make her upset. Because she thought by making me homeless, which isn't going to happen, by the way. My men are going to make sure that doesn't happen. And my Patreon has gone up. Zach Knight has taken over my Patreon and just revamped it. We've got a movie night where I watch movie for $5 a month. I watch movies with my Patreon supporters. So far, we watched Knock Knock, The Iron Maiden, and goodness, what was that last week? We've watched 3 movies so far. And I watch it with them, and we all comment and talk about, how it ties in. And as a writer, I will also talk about, how I see it as a writer and what kind of Save the Cat theme I think it's talking about, because I used to do some screenwriting. Another thing is, those that are at my Patreon, I make a daily blog. And when I go for my walks, I'll take films of her bomb clouds, and I'll talk about everything going on in my life daily. Like I've been doing political commentary on these elections for the past three days at my blog. And my followers are getting very detailed analysis of what I think is going on. So yeah. So, this is and because of the increase in Patreon support, I'm able to afford to stay here. And Laurie McBride cannot kick me out as president and say that I'm not the president, because I've got a roof over my head, I've got food to eat, I'm in good health, and I am fully qualified to be your president. So I kind of dressed up a little different today, kind of look a little presidential. And yeah, I am the United States president, United States. So don't worry. Yes, Donald Trump got ripped off. But it's okay, because I'm better than Trump, and I'm better than Biden, and I am the true president. I have Trump in my cabinet, though. I hear that what he might do, since it looks like he might lose the election, is he's going to set up his own media channel. And since I've appointed him as my press secretary, that might be where he's going to do that role. He's going to set up his own media channel. That'll be pretty cool. So if that Joe Biden automaton gets out of line, he's going to have to deal with it through Trump's media channel. So anyways, folks, it's okay. We're not going to have a civil war, because I'm a uniter, not a divider. Oh, I forgot to mention, here's something very interesting about my cabinet. I think this will be the first time in U.S. presidential history we've had such an inclusive cabinet. Let me tell you something interesting about my cabinet. My cabinet reflects my commitment to represent all those who have integrity, regardless of their race or background. We've got Tulsi Gabbard, who leans liberal, Rand Paul, who leans conservative, Bernie Sanders, who leans liberal. These are all in my cabinet. Ron Paul, who leans conservative, Ben Carson, who leans conservative, Stephanie Kelton, who leans liberal, Jo Jorgensen, she's a libertarian. Donald Trump leans conservative. Kanye West leans conservative. Jesse Ventura, he's kind of like a green liberal type. Tucker Carlson, believe it or not, Tucker Carlson is a registered Democrat, folks. A lot of people don't know this about him, but he is, just like me. But he leans conservative, I'll admit it, lately. Bob Barr, he leans conservative. Sergei Shoigu is a centrist, I believe, according to American standards. Neil deGrasse Tyson leans liberal. Rostislav Sabolka, liberal. John Echohawk, he's a Democrat, liberal. Brian Dean Wright is a Democrat, but he leans conservative. Alexander Bortnikov, centrist. Dan Bongino leans conservative. Elaine Chao leans conservative. Vladimir Putin, I would put him in centrist category. Bill Nye leans liberal. Sonny Perdue is conservative. I've got a mix here. I've got What's good about me as president is that everybody feels represented. The Democrats don't feel left out. The Republicans don't feel left out. I am curing the division in the country with my centrist policies, which is the way forward, and we will not allow Lori McBride to divide the country and start a civil war, because I am the uniter. And this country is now probably on one of the healthiest paths forward that it's ever been on. I would like to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. Not only do you help me fight for true love and keep up the battle against the evil Jesuit order, but you guys are my friends and I really like hanging out with you. It's been a lot of fun. Like I said, we had a lot of fun on the movie night. So just thank you so much to my Patreon supporters.
Gail, Gail, Gail.